you are planted in a place where you have something that God has given you that is significant to the environment. But most times what happens is the enemy will begin to put distance and people begin to question, why are you here? Now, I know I read only the second half of the text, but in the beginning of the text, the people saw Jesus, and the first thing they said was, ain't this the carpenter's son? They started off not with the fact that he had been doing work. But they started off trying to discount him, saying, ain't he the carpenter's son? How did he get this power? How did he get wisdom? Then Jesus says something significant and then something else correlated with what he said. He said, I'm going to translate it. A prophet could go anywhere and be honored by folk he don't know. But he don't get the same kind of respect in his hometown, with his family. Did you read the text? Am I saying something wrong? Because I want to make sure. If I'm outside of the text, you tell me. But he said a prophet gets plenty of honor everywhere else. But his hometown, his relatives, and his household. But here's what happened after he said it. The place where he was planted, even for a season, missed out on the mighty works of his hands. Except a few people that got healed. And he walked away shaking his head at the lack of faith in the place. On one hand, you would be discouraged if you couldn't do what you know God could do in you. But can I encourage somebody today? I don't care what anybody says to you, about what God has put in you, how it's packaged, how it looks, how it sounds, how it whatever. I don't care if you dress it up, if you dress it down. I don't care if you did this or that and it causes people to wonder why it don't look like church as they've known it. I don't care if people have made up their minds about you and what they think you can do. God has put more in you than what folk think. And this is the season and the time for all of us to catch a clue from Jesus, and it's time to just keep it moving. Why? Because God is not going to waste his time on a whole bunch of people that just doubt that things can get done. I said it from the beginning and I meant what I said. I've learned that over time that there is no such thing as can't, because God is too able to do exceeding abundantly above all I can ask or think, to walk into a mentality that says you can't do this, you can't do that, it won't happen, it won't be this, it won't be that. God is too big. God is too big for us to settle for just saying, well, we can just keep on doing it like we've been doing it. God is too big for us to settle for people's opinions about what they think we ought to be. God is too big for us to think to ourselves that all we have ever done is all that we're going to be able to do. It's time to move. It's time to quit crying about what we already know. We already know there are people that don't get it. We already know that people don't have to understand it. We already know that people have already misconstrued what they think about you, what they think about me, and everything else. And guess what? As long as we continue to live in that stuff, we will not be able to do what God has called us to do. Jesus was called to do more than to sit around and to wait on somebody's opinion to change. Their opinion didn't change, so they missed out on what was on the inside of the Christ that we said we serve. So it's time to what? Get up and whatever you think you are, whatever God has made you to be, know that you are for this work. Know that it's in you. Know that there's more in you than what people have ever said. There's more in you than what your past has tried to dictate. There's more in you than what your struggle has tried to dictate. There's more in you than what people perceive. You are called to this work. So what must be the resolve when others doubt you? First of all, God's work is honorable. God's work is honorable. They doubted Jesus because they perceived him to be nobody. Verse 2, and on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him, they didn't shout, "Where did this man get all these things?" What is the wisdom that's given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands? Now you would think that if something good is happening through you, that somebody wouldn't ask about you, but they would be asking, how can I get access? Okay, so it's kind of like this. So I talked to one of my cousins yesterday. He's out of town. He's on vacation. He called and he was just checking in on family because this was a trip he already planned. He couldn't be here, and he was lightening the load. He, like everybody else on Facebook, seeing all the stuff that I've been doing. Yeah, I cook as called part of my therapy. I got to do it because if I don't, folk will get on my nerves and I might hurt somebody. So since I ain't lifting weights and I'm not doing all this other stuff, let me get in the kitchen, be creative, and do something different. So what he's been noticing is I'm doing all these different steaks. The first thing he said is, man, I need to know where are you, wait for it, where are you getting this stuff? Y'all might have missed what I just said. I said something. He asked not how to do what I was doing. He asked for what? The connect to what it is that I was able to get so I could do what I do. The response ought to be from people not about you and what they think your capability is. It ought to be about how can I get access to the same thing that's working in you. So if they ain't asking that, you don't got time to waste with them because they're trying to discredit you and they don't realize discrediting you means they discredit God. I'm trying to preach my way through this. Y'all look at me if you want to, but listen to what I'm saying. There called to come a moment where you stop worrying about what other folk got to say, stop worrying about what they think, stop worrying about how they're going to try to perceive you and all that other kind of stuff, and recognize if they're not trying to tap in to what you got time to waste on trying to defend why God is using you. The work of the Lord is honorable. And if God has honored you by allowing you to serve, no matter what people think, it is not an automatic privilege. It is not a right. Preaching the gospel ain't a right. You got to be called to it. Serving in the church, I don't care what your title is. There was a person in the Bible named Saul that was king, but when God got tired of him, he took the anointing off of him, and he was just occupied as a placeholder, and he put it on somebody that he believed in called David. So some of y'all might be in a spot where you're nothing but a placeholder for the person that's going to take things to the next. You better be careful because God's work is too honorable to be wasted on people that think they're entitled to it. It's too honorable to go around and try to discredit